This awesome Indian guy delivers food to my office every day. He sends there's a line group, and he sends a menu online.
Nice.
Yeah, if it's really good, it's like a big takeout box of really good Indian food for 135 baht. And if you want it, you just sort of choose your menu and respond back to the group, and he shows up an hour later with a bag full of food. It's great. But I had it 2 days in a row, and the dal is it's taken its toll on me.
Oh, really?
It's a lot of beans.
Those office towers, I mean, I think they spawn a lot of businesses because all those office workers like need food and need other things. If I was going to open a restaurant, I would target large office buildings.
Yeah, man, you said on the show before about how the 7-Eleven by your university is probably like
oh my God,
the busiest one in the country.
I'm sure there's busier ones, but it's right outside of my university, and it's just constantly packed.
Yeah, well, there's a Family Mart in the basement of Central World, the office towers of Central World, and it's never not packed.
I probably mentioned it before, but I find it depressing because I just think that if instead of becoming a professor, I just somehow figured out how to own a stop and go in the right place, I would be a millionaire. It's like I know in Thailand, like CP Group owns a lot of those 7-Eleven franchises, but if you just owned that one 7-Eleven franchise, that one location, that you're basically set for life, I'm sure.
Well, hey man, like we just did our episode last week about the work permit changes. Maybe you can own a store now, right?
Yeah, you just would have to purchase the rights. I'm sure that ain't cheap.
Yeah, I doubt it. I really doubt it is. And speaking of that, actually, the episode we did last week about changes to the work permit got a really good response, which is great. And thanks again to Jerrold for coming on. But he did mention that now that foreigners can work a second job as long as they have a work permit for their first job, except if it's one of the prohibited professions.
I see.
That foreigners are not allowed to do in Thailand.
So that means it's not possible to even get a proper work permit for it.
Right. You just can't work in these professions flat out.
I see.
So I thought it'd be fun to just take a look at a couple of them. But this document is titled Occupations and Professions Prohibited for Foreign Workers. It's interesting how we were talking the last episode about how specific the language is for these new rules. These things that you're not allowed to do are strangely vague.
Oh, really?
The first one is labor work.
Huh. That is pretty vague.
Yeah, that can be attributed to many different things. Like if I'm cleaning someone's house, am I
right?
Am I fixing a tractor?
Yeah. What does it mean? Yeah. Does that mean like just construction work, like hard, real physical labor, like ditch digging, or does it include stuff like house cleaning? Well,
it does go on to say a few other things. It's funny you mention that because the third item on the list is bricklaying, carpentry, or other construction work.
Interesting.
Which is weird because bricklaying and carpentry are very specific construction work, but other construction work is completely vague.
Yeah, you're right. Does that include painting? Is that construction work?
Yeah. What if I'm called to fix someone's faucet or repair a mirror in the bathroom? Another one is wood carving. Can't do that.
That seems oddly specific.
What if I want to whittle spears? What if I want to make wooden spears for people?
You can't do it.
I'm raising an army.
You can't do it.
Now, you're a lawyer. What do you think of this one? Driving motor vehicles, driving a non-mechanically propelled carrier, or driving a mechanically propelled carrier. What is a non-mechanically propelled carrier?
I have no idea. I'm kind of curious if the awkwardness or the vagueness of the language is due to like a poor translation from Thai. Because I'm not even sure what that means. So are they saying in general you just can't be a driver?
Yeah, driving motor vehicles. That's prohibited.
So far it seems like most of the prohibited professions are kind of maybe lower level work. So maybe they're trying to protect the jobs for poor or labor type people. They're trying to protect those jobs from foreigners. It sounds like this is more targeted at people from Asia, not Westerners. So it sounds like this. It almost sounds like this could be like an anti-Burmese thing, where they don't want Burmese. You know what I mean? They don't want Burmese people to do this work.
Well, it's funny you say that because number 17 on the list is gold ornaments, silverware, or pink gold making, and there's also bronzeware making, and there's also cutting or polishing diamond or precious stones.
But the odd thing is, even though you're just reading that they're prohibited, it's still common for Indians and Burmese to be doing that in Thailand.
Yeah, very much so. That's a huge market for a lot of people to come over here and do it. Because, Burma especially has these huge gem mines.
Right. There's also 1 million Burmese girls working as maids as well. So maybe, I guess, that's excluded from like the labor that you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, maybe. They also can't be a hair cutter, a hairdresser, or offer beauty treatment. Nope, that's no go. Cloth weaving by hand, mulberry paper making by hand. You can't do that.
Mulberry paper making?
Yeah, by hand. You can have a mulberry making machine.
So it's not paper. So
but you can't make it by hand.
So it's not like paper making in general. It's only mulberry paper making.
It says mulberry paper making by hand.
Fascinating.
You can make raspberry paper. Is that a thing?
I don't know.
Strawberry paper.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
And here you go, Ed. Sorry to dash your dreams, man, but your hopes of owning a 7-Eleven are unrealistic because number 6 is shop/outlet attendance.
Oh, well, I can be the owner. I just can't be the attendant.
Oh, I guess so. I guess it doesn't say shop outlet ownership.
Right. I just can't be the attendant. Damn it.
I still think I could open up a New York style hot dog stand on Ceylon and kill.
I think you probably could. I remember someone telling me when I first got here that foreigners can't work in bars and restaurants, but I don't think that's true. Like now I see many foreigners working in bars and restaurants. Does it say check the list? Does it say foreigners are prohibited from, like, can you be a bartender if you're a foreigner?
Let's see. Let's go through the list real quickly here. Lacquerware making Thai musical instruments, nailware making, gold ornaments, bronzeware, Thai doll making. So sorry, Ed, your hobby is illegal.
Damn. Well, it seems like they're trying to just protect Thai crafts, a lot of this stuff.
Very specific, yeah. Like Thai doll making is fine, but I could open a factory that makes Barbie dolls.
Right.
You know, Mattel might have an issue with that, but the Thai authorities wouldn't.
Right.
Yeah, alms bowl making, can't do that. Hand making of silk products, Buddha image making, knife making, paper or cloth umbrella making, can't do that.
Yeah, these are
shoe making.
These are oddly specific, yes.
Hat making. Here we are. Brokerage or agency work, except broker or agency work in international trade. It's very specific. And this is an interesting one. Civil engineering works concerning design and calculation, which is interesting because remember when the Mahanakan building opened, that big new jigsaw-looking building in downtown?
Yeah.
There was kind of an uproar because some Thai guy came out and said it was an embarrassment because it was designed by foreign architects.
Right.
And it shouldn't be allowed or something like that. It was kind of a little controversy there.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if that counts as maybe the designer can be foreign, but the actual engineer that builds it must be Thai.
Yeah, there's always a loophole somewhere. Dressmaking, pottery or ceramic ware making, cigarette rolling by hand. Can't do that. Tour guide or sightseeing operation. Street vending. There goes my Ceylon hot dog idea. Out the window.
Well, I know of several like hamburger trucks that are run by foreigners, so apparently maybe that slides by. Maybe the mobile truck is an exception.
As long as it's not mechanically propelled.
I have no idea.
Yeah, anyway, it's an interesting list, and you're right. A lot of the things on here seem to be sort of protecting the Thai cottage industries.
For sure.
And fair enough, I guess. Fair enough.
No doubt.
I know Japan has very strict rules around making samurai swords.
Oh, really? Well, I still think, we talked about this a little bit last week, and I know you addressed it with Jerrold. I still think there's reason to be somewhat skeptical on these changes. I don't question Jerrold's legal analysis of the statute, but I'm worried that it could have been just some kind of mistake, like some massive gaffe by the Thai Labor Department, and then next week they're going to make an announcement and say, oops, like we didn't mean to do that.
I think a lot of people are thinking like that, and actually one of our listeners, a guy named Daniel Tietze, he left a comment on our Facebook page, and he said, that's cool, although I'm also a bit doubtful. Was it really their intention to loosen it this way? Or is this an oversight that will be fixed at some point in the near future? So that's a really good point.
I have to agree with that point. I've just lived in Thailand too long, and I think that I can't remember them making such a massive loosening of the rules ever, period. And so it seems like if they did, there'd be a much bigger announcement. I mean, like the laws sometimes get better in our favor and they sometimes get worse. So the laws don't always get worse for us. Sometimes they do amend things and okay, something got easier. But this is a radically easier thing. The idea that if you have one work permit, that allows you to work anything else. It's such a radical change. It seems odd that it would happen without some special announcement that clarified this by the Labor Department.
Yeah. I think it's like someone walking up to you and handing you a fistful of money. You know, you're like, okay, but wait a minute.
Right. So I'm cautiously optimistic, and I await the official announcement of the Labor Department to clarify this. It would be great if it was true.
Yeah.
Well, I came across not to completely change the subject, but I came across a article that, I saw this in the news earlier, but didn't really pay attention to it. And I came across an article yesterday about the fact that apparently the National Legislative Assembly, which is the military's version of a parliament, is seriously considering legalizing medical marijuana. So I don't know if you've heard this story or not.
Let me just quickly check this list here. Nope, marijuana dealer is not on the list of restricted professions.
There you go. It's not a restricted profession.
$5 million.
You could still
That's right.
you can start
Right.
you can start your growing operation soon.
I'm thinking of the Bangkok Podcast dispensary. Just look for it.
Well, just to clarify, apparently only medical marijuana is under consideration. So this is not like a recreational pot law, not to disappoint too many of our listeners. It's only medical, but if they do actually pass medical marijuana, Thailand would be the first country in all of Asia to do it. Again, maybe it's a little bit like the work permit law. I'll believe it when I see it. You know what I mean? But it would be pretty impressive for Thailand to actually be in the forefront of something. I feel like on social issues, Thailand is not usually in the forefront.
Yeah, totally. And yeah, this does seem very strange. And it will be the first country in Asia to do this if it happens. But it will also be one of the first countries in the world. Like, this is still such a big enough issue that when a country decriminalizes marijuana, it's global news.
Oh, no doubt.
Like, I'm Canadian, and Canada just recently did it. It's essentially been mostly decriminalized in Canada for years. Like, you can walk down the street smoking a joint. No one would really care.
Right.
But now you can officially do that. So even when Canada did it this past year, it was still big news. So for Thailand to do it, it seems, again, strangely progressive.
Yeah, I've got a couple interesting points about this. Generally when we think of like a military government or an authoritarian government or a government that's not elected, I think we immediately associate that with some very conservative attitudes or values. And I think that's probably generally true. But I think the weird thing about some of these authoritarian governments is that if for whatever reason they want to do something, it might be for some corrupt reason. Like the army might realize, oh my God, we can make a lot of money from medical marijuana. Like who knows what the reason might be. I don't even think I would call it necessarily an advantage. But if the Thai government wants to do it, they could probably do it much faster than an elected government could.
Yeah, that's one of the good things, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
of being the one guy in charge, is you can say, all right, this is the new rule, so be it. And it's like, it's done.
There is a NLA, the version of a parliament we have, but I think it's essentially it's probably the prime minister, and it's probably not only him. I'm sure there's a cadre of other generals who weigh in on these things, but there's probably a relatively small group of generals who are really making the decisions, and then they spread the word, and then the NLA votes for whatever they want. And the odd thing in these articles is they already have land apparently somewhere in the Northeast for some giant cannabis growing operation. So I don't know if it would be like the tobacco monopoly. We have this giant tobacco monopoly not far from Sukhumvit actually. So I presumably, if there's medical marijuana, I think there's going to be some kind of government monopoly on cannabis growing. So maybe this is the government really just sees it as a revenue raising thing. But remember, this is only medical. But so presumably you would still need a prescription. So I saw this article and I brought it up with some of my students and we were discussing it. If the Thai government decides, hey, we really want medical marijuana, but we don't want recreational, I think in some countries that can work where there's effective rule of law. Like, for example, in the state of Ohio, where I'm from, I think medical marijuana is becoming legal this year. I think it might even be next month. But I'm sure in Ohio that after it becomes next month or whenever, it still will be difficult to get it on the black market, and you still would have to be worried about being arrested. You wouldn't be able to walk down the street, because the law says you have to have a prescription. But I think in Thailand, the rule of law is just not as strong here. And so here, I think once they open up the gates to medical marijuana, it might really just make recreational pot way more common.
Well, I kind of disagree. You said that doesn't the rule of law, we've talked about it before. Thailand has more than enough laws to operate at a regulatory level similar to most Western countries. It's just an enforcement problem. And that's I think where the problem for something like this would come in. Like, for instance, the last time I had to get a medical certificate was when I got a driver's license a few years ago. And I forgot to get it. And I got up all the way up to Chatuchak, the Department of Land Transport. And I'm like, oh shit, I forgot my license and medical thing and certificate. And some guy just said, no problem, just go outside around the corner. There's a little store that'll do it for you. So I went outside, and there's literally a lineup of motorcycle guys looking for foreigners walking out of the building all frustrated. And he's like, medical certificate. And I said, yeah. And he said, get on. So we were down the soy a little bit and walked into this thing. And 10 minutes later, I was out with a medical certificate. The guy didn't even look at me. That's a tightly controlled thing, but there's still no enforcement for that. There's no real control over that, and it's just so much wiggle room that it's abused.
Well, just to clarify, when I say the rule of law, I don't mean the laws themselves. Well, I basically I was making your point. So what I meant is that what I meant is the rule of law is not really in effect. So when they pass this law that says, hey, you need a prescription, for me, I'm all for recreational legalization, so it doesn't bother me. But if the Thai government, if the military thinks that they're going to legalize it only for medical reasons and they think they're going to be able to control it, I think they might have a big surprise coming, because I think the Thai police are just not organized enough or competent enough or non-corrupt enough to draw that line.
I agree. I've full transparency. I've never tried marijuana in my life, despite coming from Canada, where most people are potheads.
Really? Wow.
I got nothing against it. I'm for full legalization. I think it should be legal everywhere, and I've seen the effects of it. My mom had cancer a few years ago, and she beat it. But now she takes cannabis oil and smokes joints regularly, and it helps her 1,000%. Yeah.
Wow.
And my sister's a huge hippie. She smokes more drugs than Cheech and Chong. So I'm the only one in my family who's like this straight nerd. My mom and my sister are potheads.
Oh, that's funny.
But but I think it's a slippery slope. And in a country like Thailand, I mean, prostitution is illegal in Thailand, technically.
Right.
But it still happens. It's still abused, and there's still a lot of bad people making money off it.
Right.
And I think, I'm generally all for legalization of marijuana, but I think it's a slippery slope, especially in a country like Thailand or other countries in Asia, where there's so much more potential for abuse than it would be in Western countries.
That's true. I never capitalized on this, but California has had medical marijuana for years, and I think they recently just legalized recreational, or maybe they're about to. But even in the U.S. and California, it was, I know from friends of mine, it wasn't that hard to get the medical marijuana card. So even though it was by prescription only, I think there were many doctors who, I don't think it was literally 100% a scam, but I think it was fairly close to it, where you could just go to one of these doctors and say, hey, I'm under a lot of stress, I'm having trouble sleeping, I've got lower back pain, and then he would give you the cannabis card. And so if that's true in California, then I think it's going to be true in Thailand for sure. I think it's going to be easy. I think it's going to be easy to get a prescription, I think.
But also, I'll tell you, I've never tried it before, and if tomorrow it was 100% legal in Thailand, I still wouldn't do it, because when you're messing around with drugs like this, like we said, if someone in Thailand wants you gone, they're going to be able to get some dirt on you. And if you're dealing with sort of the gray area of legality of drugs, I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. 10-foot joint.
Well, if it was totally legal, then it wouldn't be a gray area.
Yeah. Well, you can get back to me on that.
Well, this is all speculation at this point.
Totally.
But the talk, all the chatter on this issue is that the NLA is really going to do it. So we'll have to wait and see.
Well, it'll be interesting. It seems like Thailand's making some very, very strange but very welcome steps in the right direction here for sort of liberalization of a lot of these cultural norms.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, I think that.
Yeah.
I think that what you get, I'll go back to my earlier point. I think that probably these authoritarian governments in general are conservative, but they might have their own reasons for doing what they're doing. Like, they might see medical marijuana as just a revenue source. I mean, I think they also realize that there's a huge global market now. So if they set up a cannabis monopoly in Thailand to supply Thailand, they can also sell it overseas to all the countries that are legalizing.
That's a good point. Have you ever read that book called The Wind-Up Girl by Paolo Bacigalupi?
I have not read the book, but a friend recommended it to me, but I haven't read it.
It's a really, really neat book. It's sort of a cyberpunk sci-fi book that takes place a few hundred years in the future in Bangkok. And it's really, really cool. And in the future, in this book, Bangkok has sort of monopolized the trade in seed banks and genetics and creating these sort of individual strains for surviving droughts and things like that. So maybe someone read this book and they're like, hey.
Well, it's funny you brought that up because the article I read, it specifically mentioned that Thailand was well known in the 70s for having the most potent cannabis. And I think it was very popular in the U.S. I think it was just called Thai stick. So Thai stick was like the most potent marijuana in the 70s in the U.S. So everyone wanted like Thai cannabis. But this article was lamenting that Thailand had lost its stature as a marijuana provider. And so perhaps if they legalize medical marijuana, they can recapture their status.
Their glory days.
That's right, the glory days where Thailand was known for marijuana.
Far out, man, far out.
Hey, instead of being known for prostitution, Thailand could be known for marijuana.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess give me 10 or 15 minutes. I'll come back with 3 or 4 jokes about that. But thinking on my feet, I'm not too quick right now. It's almost as if I just smoked a big bowl, which I didn't. But
which you never have.
I never have. It's very weird. I've never even tried smoking.
Really? Not even? You never smoked a cigarette?
Never touched it. No, I think it's disgusting. I just never appealed to me.
I'm happy to say that I do not smoke tobacco.
I think of it like kissing a dude. I got nothing against it, but it's just not something I'm ever really interested in. I don't think I ever will be.
That's a good way to put it.
Deep thoughts with Greg. All right, patrons. Well, thanks for listening. Thanks for your support. And hey, you know what, Ed? This bonus episode, we're actually going to release this to the general public. Our patrons are going to get it first, and then a few days later, we're going to release this to our regular listeners. It's just so they have an idea of what the bonus episodes are all about.
Dude, you didn't tell me that. I would have cleaned up my act a little bit.
You could have combed your hair at least. I mean, Jesus,
you're right.
But yeah, so guys, if you're a regular listener to the show and not a patron, that's cool too. But if you would like a bit more extra content, these are the kind of things we talk about on the bonus shows. They're sort of unscripted. We just ramble on about various things that happen in Bangkok and a bit more loosey-goosey, like I say, unscripted.
Uncensored.
Yeah, we kept our potty mouths in check for this time mostly, but yeah, we have a little bit more of a wild time on these ones. So anyway, if you're looking for more content about Bangkok, think about becoming a patron. Just head over to bangkokpodcast.com/support, and you find out all you need to know there. So thanks again, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for listening.
I'll see you next week.